All right. Well, I think I will begin with some welcomes and continue to admit people as they come. But great to see we have 36 people on this call. I'm happy to see you all here. My name is Hannah Ayas. I'm the program manager at Counterpulse in San Francisco, California. Um, I'm happy to welcome you all to Choreographing Change, a talk with the instigators of Grand Reunion. I am currently calling in from Chochenyo Ohlone land, otherwise known as Berkeley, California, where I live. I think that's it. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to Grand Reunion, which this is one component event of January's Grand Reunion, curated by Peter Plyer. Grand Reunion was originally designed as an in-person conference in Poland for June 2020. But since then, it's become a growing and changing international group of practitioners, thinkers, and writers and scholars who've been gathering and generating a monthly online magazine with associated monthly live events and off-screen activities. The project aims at documenting while also cultivating and transmitting relevant knowledge and practices honed in dance, movement, and choreographic reflection and creation. It moved from being that 10-day in-person conference to this 2-year platform. And it was really precipitated in response to growing extremism and polarization, tearing at the fabric of interhuman and interspecies relations and our connection to nature. It posits that the body-based practice of dance and choreography can help reduce harm in the world. So without further ado, I will introduce one of the instigators of this project, my colleague, Julie Phelps from Counterpulse.
Hi, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Really excited to be at this midpoint in the first year of the project. We do hope to have a second year, but currently this project is slated to go through June. And we're taking this opportunity of a midpoint to both reflect on where the project has gone, what we've done, and what seems relevant, missing, and opportune in the future of the project as we continue to produce these online magazines. I dropped a link into the chat if you want to check those out, as well as live events like this one. The other thing I just want to say is that one of the core interests of the instigators is to actually continue to decentralize the project and invite a growing and changing group of people to all really become authors of the project. So much so that actually we've engaged a rewriting process for the project statement, where each month the project statement is rewritten by another participant in the project, creating this ongoing conversation as well as this response to the external world, and really centering non-hierarchical structures and creating a collective of people to share practices and ideas with no one being the expert or student, but really just creating a learning environment, centering on the idea that dance can help reduce harm in the world. So with that inspiration, I hope that we can also, as a group, participate in a discussion today. And we really start from just our own personal perspective. So each instigator will offer reflections on why they got involved in instigating this project, what it means to them, why they're still involved. And then we will also open up the conversation to those of you who are here. Many people here I can see have been involved in the project since the beginning, and would have their own story of relevance and interaction with the project. We wanted to bring some whimsy and poetics also to this. We're seeing this panel as the rewriting of the project statement for January. So what each instigator is going to do after they just discuss their own personal relationship to the project is going to offer a poem that they've written inspired by the project statement and their experiences in the project to date. And we're taking inspiration from Justin Ibrahimi, who's another staff person at Counterpulse, a workshop that he recently offered called Pandemic Poetics, where while listening to poetry, finding our own response and generation of language and inspirations, bringing the body in and bringing your own thinking and motivations in. So I hope that you'll have fun with this. Joanna is giving an example of one option that might be possible. So before we just kick off, I want to just give everyone an opportunity to go and get any materials you may have around the house. So paper, pencils, crayons, plants, gemstones, rocks. While each instigator is reading their poem, we're all invited to kind of create a collective image or tableau that will then also become part of the document of this January rewriting of the project statement. You can also use your body as material, dancing, posing, really anything that you want to do. For these tableaus, we will be turning off the view of non-video participants. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but we invite you to if it brings you pleasure or joy. Okay, does anybody else want to offer anything while people are maybe gathering? Any of the other participants want to offer anything while people are gathering materials? Okay, we'll just give 2 beats here so people can actually go get something and come back if they want.
Part of it is also playing with objects in the screen. We did this quite frequently with the object game. So any object, any plant, anything you can grab for making poetry on the Zoom screen as we're reading our poems is welcome.
We still have some people trickling in as well, I see. Okay, I'm gonna get started. So why am I involved in Grand Reunion? What is this project for me? What do I hope this project is for me and others? It all begins with the deep personal belief that I have that dance practice and the somatic practices that surround the dance field have the power to help us grow our capacity for collaboration, mutability, fluidity, and that these skills can help replace and displace or offset and balance the archaeologies of hierarchy, power, control, and subjugation that we're experiencing all over the world. And that offsetting these inherited, dominant, and oppressive systems is important, that we may not feel like we can change them in the world or at large, but that I have another belief that the personal transformation is the base unit of social change, and that the practices that I've experienced in the dance field have changed me, and they've helped me act differently in the world. They've brought out different sides of my personality and my generosity and my ability to improvise and adapt. And that these new ways of thinking and being are vital to reducing harm in the world at large and the people who I touch, but also just inside of my own psyche and selfhood. I also believe that deep embodiment is inherently an antidote to alienation and a sense of supremacy over other people, and also supremacy over other than human nature. That if you can truly tap into and connect to your body, you are connected to nature, you are water, and that it becomes easier and more natural to move into fluidity and changeability. And what I've really appreciated taking these beliefs and instigating this project and now being inside of the project is that it's an attempt at building a new collective during a time where being together has changed so deeply for so many of us. And I really value unhinging from geographies and having this opportunity to connect with people all over the world, dealing with similar and dissimilar challenges in their communities and in their countries. One thing in particular that has come up in almost every meeting for me in talking about the political, socio-political situations in many of the countries that the participants are coming from is seeing cycles. getting over a virginal sense that the challenges we're facing are original, and really just seeing that history and challenges and opportunities happen in cycles, and that we can actually learn from each other and not feel like we're starting from the beginning every time we begin. Okay, so I have written a poem version of the project statement, and here it is. It's in the air. Can we center change? Can we heal? Brave experimentation. Contrive the conditions, dancing, dancing, dancing. Conjure coherence and collect the collective. Choreograph care, care, choreograph change. There's as much missing as is present. Change is possible. Welcome friction.
Repeat.
It's in the air. Can we center change? Can we heal? Brave experimentation. Contrive the conditions, dancing, dancing, dancing. Conjure coherence and collect the collective. Choreograph care, care, choreograph change. There's as much missing as is present. Change is possible. Welcome friction. All right, thank you. Marta, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Julie. I'll start with how I became part of this project, and why did I become part of this project. I was invited by Joanna Leśnierowska, whom I've been working with since quite some time already. And to a certain extent, it was a consequence of the book project we have and we are running at the moment. And it's a series of soon 3 books on choreography. And I'm not on the daily basis, I'm not a choreographer, and I'm also not working mainly in the choreography. I'm working in a slightly wider field, performing arts. But I've been always observing and kind of realizing that choreography is becoming much closer to me than, for instance, a theater. So in a sense, I entered this project also because of a genuine and huge exhaustion by the theater field, and not only the way how it's what it presents, but mostly because of the way how it works. And I found the choreographic work being realized differently. And I've become fascinated by the way how working in a choreography literally changes the perspective, or can change a perspective, can change the way how we see, how we feel, but also how we think about the, let's say, outside world, if you like, or about yourself. And this kind of repositioning or shifting the perspective became crucial for me and for my thinking about this project. I was kind of seeing choreography as a way to address the current urgencies, political, social ones, in Poland, in the world, because of the way how it cherishes the affect, how it works. Acknowledging that the knowledge is being produced not only by the thought, but mostly by the body and with the body, and how the embodied experience, or if you want, the lived experience, can become a real engine for a change and for a kind of common work and common effort. And I was wondering how to, in a way, articulate that very affective work of the choreography, or how to document it and share it also for the ones who don't necessarily feel courageous enough to start practicing choreography. So how can we, in a way, transfer the knowledge that is being produced by the choreography, but also transfer the very way how the social relationships are being produced within the choreography? And that was and still is, I guess, part of my role in the project, to observe, to be somehow in between the fields, and to observe how we can actually transfer everything that happens here also to the ones that cannot be physically or digitally with us. And I guess the context of starting this project was also coming from this genuine need of finding new alliances and trying to see how the solidarity is possible nowadays. And that comes from this very feeling of exhaustion, from being exhausted by imagining alternative possible ways of dealing with the reality. And I realized very quickly, and pandemic obviously only amplified that feeling, that imagination can be super powerful, can be a strong political tool, but also when imagination happens in isolation, it can become really exhaustive. And therefore, I really cherished and valued this regularity of our meetings every month. And even more, maybe I cherished the possibility to delve into the magazines that have been produced so far. I guess mostly because they offer different ways of gathering, not only the Zoom one that is, I think a lot of us feel this kind of Zoom fatigue and is being exhausted by this kind of flatness of the screen. And then a possibility to just delve in some of the materials by listening to them or by reading it without seeing your own face as it happens on Zoom, or without being in a crowd, can also build an intimacy. It can also build a relation with the other, just in a different way. And therefore, this is what I cherished a lot. And I guess what I'm questioning myself the most at the moment is how to continue with the Zoom gatherings when we are confronted with this huge Zoom fatigue all over the places. And when it comes to the kind of poem, I was mostly rewriting or looking for the different versions of our manifesto that has been, or a program text that has been rewritten already 3 times. So I'm using the sentences from all of the versions. So here we go. Friction emerges between ideas and practice. It is happening before our eyes. We are all silently witnessing this act of searching, executed with focus, attention, and a large investment of energy. We are repeating each other. Yeah, thanks a lot. Over to the next one.
Next one would be me. Thank you all for coming. I'm reading from handwritten notes. The first thing that came to my mind when we were talking about why I'm in the project and why this is still important for me, it's about clarity and inspiration. And I want to see the whole project as a score, as a choreographic score. It really asks me to revisit and to reinvest time to look into my beliefs in art, dance, life, and the sharing with others. I also found really touching and a big inspiration that we wanted to parallel or realign or align this project with many other movements of our times, And there are big ones and there are small ones. And the big ones are for climate or for civil rights movement. Fridays for Future, Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion, but also all the women's marches in many countries in the world. And although this is a small platform in a way, each of us is bringing another cycle, another circle, another interest, another way of working. So also in these gatherings of all of us, there's whole worlds and whole belief systems keep spiraling into the meeting, which I feel very important and take as a big inspirations. We're not alone in these efforts. And we can just contribute what dance and choreography and improvisation can be part of a bigger movement. If I would want to have this one conversation with original member of the Grand Union, it would be on education, as this is a big chapter, as also on how we meet here, because initially we were invited also because of the Alternative Dance Academy in Poznan. But I would also bring in that I have met many of these systems of improvisation and somatic based work in a school in Arnhem, EDDC, and also highlight the school SNDO in Amsterdam, where Barbara Dilley and Steve Paxton would meet, would also teach. And there is this one really incredible lesson that I always will remember with a blackboard of Barbara Dilley's references, where she danced, with whom she danced, and what this meant to her. Also coming back and being in these circles of who is not here, I also had this experience, especially for the January issue, of asking Joy Mariana Smith, Black Joy, to be present with us or to contribute something in the magazine, but they cannot be here because they are having an open day at the School for New Dance Development at the moment. So I really feel even people who are not here do the work somewhere else, and they still contribute in a way with all of their work. I'm also very happy that I saw in the list of the participants of this talk, Jana from Beirut. That would be an example also that I would like to be more present, and that the new issue of the Dance Mag on Touch is just out, and it's a very inspiring issue. So a lot of people do the work and they are here or they're not here, and this gives me a lot of inspiration. While we're meeting on Zoom, one of the major Zoom experiences I had in the past year were the memorials that were held on Zoom for Nancy Stark-Smith with about 700 people, and just last week for Mary Overly with like on and off like 200 people, and even that is like reminds me of our Zoom talks and our gatherings from all over. And one person that is really coming very prominent to me through these memorial Zoom talks is Christina Svein. And I met Christina also in Arnhem as a teacher of mine. And before I will go into my poem, I would invite you to a little score of Christina Svein for about 3 minutes. If you have your camera on, just experiment with, can you put your hand somewhere into the camera, into the screen? Just whereabout you put your hands into the camera, either closer or further away. And then for 3 minutes, just close your eyes and focus on a body part, on any other body part in your body that needs some attention. And you describe with your hands the sensations in that body part for 3 minutes. So it's closed eyes, your hands describe the sensation of a body part that you're focusing on at the moment. And a few more seconds to bring this to a close. Shake out your hands, your body, your head. And return to our little talk score to compose poetics together. For my poem, I would ask you first, before I start, to translate for yourself the words care, share, and recycle into your own language. Care, share, and recycle. These will be the word. This is the last phrase of my poem, but when I get there, I would like you to read for yourself or to speak for yourself or in your mind these 3 words in your own language and see what resonates. And it's short. Okay, here we go. Let's express desire so that re-choreographing can emerge. Supporting each other, inspire desire, inspire action. Re-choreography emerges. Let's care, share, and recycle. Okay, thank you. And I will give it to Joanna.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm just putting away my my other device. I was thinking a little bit what I would actually love to say as the most important reason of instigating Grand Reunion. And of course, I think to me, Grand Reunion is of course two phases. It's this long time when I was thinking it's going to be a climax event, a finishing event of the venue, the space that was hosting community in Poland, an international community for 16 years, a live gathering. And then the second Grand Reunion is this expanded international and intercontinental virtual online live gathering series. And I realized actually that still the most important reason I wanted to do this was because I didn't want it to be alone. And I confess that within my 16 years of my work, I felt alone very often. And actually running a venue in a big country, but in its peripheries, with people just coming in and out, per se, it's already a very lonely task with some visitors that you also miss so much when they're gone, newcomers that are gonna be gone soon and waiting for another opportunity to meet. And since Provars, my program, always been foremost the place where we were meeting each other and exchanging and sharing and embracing what we know and embracing our unknowns and growing together. I always thought this is the most important reason, both for first thinking of live gathering in Poznan and then insisting on not giving up, but continuing this gathering because I didn't want it to be alone. And if I was to really point out the most important still to me aspect of it is togetherness. Is being united and it being together in this quite a bumpy road through the unknown times that we are experiencing, leaving behind what we knew, what we got used to, what we were good at, and the world that in our eyes is falling apart, and hoping all the time this transformation will come to an end, but it still continues. So the opportunity to meet, for me, it was always the most important, to not feel alone. But on the other hand, also the important thing was a certain realization in the beginning of the pandemic when I experienced a lockdown in Poland, which was so shocking to me because most of people who know me knows I am not able to sit in one place longer than a few days. It was really a challenging experience, and it made me also think about this world that is behind us and the question, the one that will come. And I actually realized that none of us is innocent, even if though we like to feel like victims of the situation, of others, or of a virus. So that actually made me stronger also into into wanting to continue, because I felt responsible that this world that we are saying goodbye to has been also co-created by me. So I have a power, and we do have a power together to change it from now on, even though we don't still see the shape of it, or we only dream about the shape of it. And in our practices, I have a feeling that we always speak a lot about community, being together, tolerance. But actually, in fact, I have realized that we don't always practice what we preach. So actually, if I believe that choreography can heal the world, and actually it's me, I coined this line, which is so hard and triggers emotions and reactions. I also need to take responsibility for my acts and own my actions and words and start to change this world, or myself, starting from myself actually. And I realized that gathering with so many people from all over the world, I'm also this secret mute villain, also not being aware of so many things in the world, so many problematics, and just sitting in my little periphery Polish position and still not seeing so much. So this gathering has been an enormous, for me, learning process of the varieties of problems, beauty in the world, but also how we differ and how we are similar. And I still think this road has been at the very end, the much so far more important than any aim that this project wanted to gain or pointed out in front of us. And when I was rereading for the occasion of this rewriting of our statement, what we have all 5 of us written for the beginning of the project, well, I was actually hooked on a one line, on a very short phrase, which was saying, we crave action. And I have realized that that's the trap, that slowing down, that we actually wished so much, and that became such a popular slogan in the beginning of the pandemic, that actually it's extremely challenging process and task. And already on the beginning, we did miss this point, and already we're claiming how much we want to act. And this acting is, to me, belonging to this old world, and is actually just the noise that is covering a space for pause and reflection and deepening reflection. So that's actually interesting. It does not mean to me anything anymore. I crave to practice what we preach and try hard to slow down and pause, which is, again, for me personally, it's really a nightmare task, really challenging task. So also thinking about rewriting the project, I was actually thinking and sharing it with my friends, my co-instigators, that in fact, this action, producing, meeting, inventing, all this madness of running and running away from confronting the problem, that actually, for me, it would be much more interesting to reverse this process and start to cut all the ballast and limit information and look deeply into the core of what we have written, what stays relevant, what phrases, and that way, in a way, by the via negativa, gets to the core of what still is important to me in this project, and this beauty of being together, of giving each other attention and listening to each other, even exchanging in the rooms. I thought that it's all already there in our statement, that we just need to cut all the noise and ballast and reduce this text maybe to the very core. And I was trying hard to get, I was dreaming about haiku, but I'm not there yet. So I was actually coming to also shorter, but still a little bit longer poem than this koan mode. So to me, I would love to share with you at this very moment of a process of getting to the core is changes in the air, earth beneath us, centering, to pause, to embrace wisdom of fields, transcending, gathering to be changed together. And I also wanted to say at the end that I don't want to change the world anymore. I want to be changed, to be able to really welcome and meet this new world, and hopefully with all of you shape it day by day. So it's on to Rivka.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm here because of what I'm seeing right now happening on this screen. And I thank you, Joanna, for just that thing around actions just now. Action. That's a whole new, just arrived. And my brain's busy, active with that one word and the challenge to action. And is that the issue? And it's one of the issues. And immediately I'm thinking, wow, there are so many actions I would love to continue to take and others to take. And yet being active and busy and occupied all the time, and it is really one of the things that we could begin to cease. This is meant to be a little wheel of releasing and ceasing things and letting them go and permitting that in order to ease in and invite in some new things. So why am I here? I'm simply here because Joanna invited me. And thinking back, I realized I trusted that invitation and that my presence would contribute something. And I notice that what is still relevant is the very engagement that we are having and providing. It's right here, right now. And we had a question, which is, what does this project want from me? I love this question. It's actually borrowed of a friend. And I think what this project wants of me is clearly what I choose it to want from me. And what I want it to want from me is to play. And I really noticed in this project, through these workshops, of which I've done many, and being reintroduced to people who move, that my sense of play has really expanded, and it's at much more ease than it used to be. So there are things important to me in this. What I'm noticing is, well, I'm noticing that I'm doing a lot of noticing. I'm choosing to do a lot of noticing in myself and in what is happening. And I'm, as a result of noticing and moving, and I feel I'm becoming ongoing movement of different speeds and qualities. And I'm inviting myself to into different habits that are at first uncomfortable. And I would love us in the world to embrace discomfort. And I don't mean the discomfort that comes from an external place of leading. What do I want to say? I want to say that for many of us who are currently in positions that are not as comfortable as before, maybe that is okay, because others really are struggling, and yet others are really suffering. And I notice myself at the moment sometimes getting quite frustrated with the use of the word struggling and suffering when there is salary and security, even if it's through the state, and house and garden and health, and we can go out, and we're in challenging situations being indoors. Maybe that's okay. I find that many, many, many more people can now connect as a result of the Zoom, including the fatigue. That is those who have digital access. So many more people can now connect, and I would love to celebrate that. We can connect with people across the world. We're doing it right now. This would have cost a lot of airplane fuel to get together and have this gathering. I'd like to celebrate this too. I'm loving seeing that the shifting in the world is accelerating. It does seem to be at the point beyond return. It's accelerating. I choose to believe in it, and I think I notice it. I am liking the introduction of quiet navigation of future new leaders rather than the loud shouting. I am enjoying that the expert is given way for expertise. I'm loving seeing some brave, courageous steps. I am noticing we're taking more care of a climate of being together. We're moving from me, my, I, mine, myself, and I to we. And I feel a lot of this I have gathered through this space, plural. I was fascinated yesterday to see that there's a new post created at the Hunterian Museum in Glasgow called A Curator of Discomfort, a whole new role. And today I noticed that my mind and body felt disheveled. My mind is crammed with information, and my body, the whole and its parts, have been given very little nourishment over the last week. And it is thanks to this space of the grand reunion for me personally that I'm really noticing this, which before I would have maybe noticed and ignored, but most likely not even noticed. So direct benefit to me. And what I put together as a, well, I don't know, poem haiku from the original text is change, air shared, time renewing, testing and improvising responding, awareness of brave and generous, fields of wisdom, wisdoms. We desire encounters during and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm loving these tableaus and just continuing to look at the screen. It's really beautiful. So that was all 5 instigators of the project. And now we have a bit of time to sort of have a group conversation. This is a moment to ask questions directly of the instigators, to offer expansion or more thoughts that you have from participating in the project about what the project is as you see it. So you can either unmute yourself and speak here, or you can ask questions in the chat. I'll help moderate and read questions out from the chat if they're going unnoticed. You can like raise your hand or wave at me if you want to be heard and you're not, but otherwise I trust us to navigate the Zoom timing and find our questions on our own.
I want to specifically thank Mariana and Rafael, Renthal and, oh, Rafael, I've forgotten how to say your name, Pazitsky, who've also participated, oh, thank you, who've also participated directly in the rewriting portion of the Grand Reunion project. And I'll drop a link into their rewrites into the chat right now.
But I think Rafał, that's so great to see you, Rafał, with us, who is not Rafał Dżemidov that participated in writing. So it's a different Rafał.
Oh, it's a different Rafał. That makes sense.
Yeah, but this one is also great to have with us. I hope he will. Now you. I'm sorry, Rafał, but you're meant to rewrite it for the next month.
It's destiny.
Meant to be, yes.
On the note of realizations, I wanted also to share that I realized how much in a bubble I live, and started to question on the way of this project, how you can get out of the bubble when you are in a bubble. And we had this dream within Grand Reunion to reach out more to other fields for the wisdom to share. But I have a feeling that we are still not there yet. And then we need this other bubble or us to break this bubble. And I have no idea how to do it still. But it was really interesting, even though before in the old world, I thought about myself as such an open-minded curator and person, knowing so much about other fields. But when it comes to a real exchange and building the project, I feel locked in my bubble so much that I don't see. I really hardly see through this. It's not transparent. The most horrifying is that the bubble is not transparent, or not as transparent as I would wish. So that's a question for us, maybe for the next months, how to get out of bubble, what the strategies to break this non-transparent, or at least clean a little bit the walls of this bubble to see others and be seen.
I'm wondering now, actually, Joanna, if anybody has any thoughts on how to break out the bubbles, whatever the bubbles mean for us.
Maybe the image of a bubble is not a good one. I feel it's more like a dough, you know. I mean, if you would peek in the bubble, then it would disappear, and everything would be clear. But it feels a bit more like a dough that it's you can remove it. It just takes time. It's a bit zäh is the German word. Maybe somebody helps me. But
it's tough. It's like leather, isn't it? It's tough.
Yeah, like dough. So there stays always a little bit, but finally you make it. But it's time. It needs patience in a way, and activity at the same time.
Yeah, but then my question is patience. So what about being active and being patient at the same time? because working with a dough, it's quite a lot of action. So it's pretty active getting out.
How about being persistent or insistent? I'm just thinking.
And I also think a lot about this kind of curiosity that kind of allows to, in a way, attune the senses to the other bubble, if you like, or to the other context. And that again requires time, patience, and yeah, I guess this kind of like kind of moving oneself in the space in order to make it available for the other. Yeah, it's like constantly navigating the position also of oneself in order to get rid of oneself, if you like, or in order to make more space for what is not there yet.
Do you mean like from oneself to multi-self?
No, I mean rather from, let's say, the perspective you're used to or the perception you're using for every day, just to have a trust, I guess, also to be able to give it up for a moment and see what happens if you try another one.
I often say of myself that I am a hoarder of survival tactics. There's a lot that's standing in the way that I wish I could, like, you know, clean out that closet for like new ways of being.
Yeah, I remember somebody the other day saying roughly, what else would I notice if I entered with a different belief system?
If you entered here?
Anywhere. What would I notice differently or other or more if I entered with a different belief system? I mean, at the moment, I'm just in, it's pretty much an impossibility, although I'm going to play around with choosing to believe something and see what I notice. But for me, it really assisted to go, well, of course, I'm noticing different things in this space than somebody else who's coming with a very different belief system. I will notice different things. I will notice that which serves me, which supports my hypotheses. The other person will notice something that supports their hypotheses and beliefs. So maybe that's something also on the dough and the bubble.
And on the exchange, I suppose, because it's, I don't know if it's possible, at least it's really hard to do it on your own, because how can you change into a system that you do not know, but meeting somebody else and watching, listening, and trying to change perspective and point of view once in a while might help.
Also, in my experience, now when I hear this and when I think about it in my last 20 years, that I actually do miss my regular days at the hairdresser salon, where I would just meet any other person and would spend half an hour, 3/4 an hour with them while cutting their hair and talking, sometimes nice things, sometimes not, sometimes really about work, sometimes not. But I really met all kinds of people that now, since I'm a full-time engaged in dance and choreography through these different jobs of teaching, curating, performing, writing applications, I really don't have that anymore. And then I think, like, would it be an option to just be part-time in the dance bubble and part-time in other bubbles? But we're working so hard to get out of our jobs, to make our money, to get the survival from our profession as a dancer, choreographer, teacher. So there's a conundrum, something cooking there. for me.
And it makes me think about the conditions in which you operate. I mean, maybe it's just simply not that easy to get out of your own context or bubble. If you're operating under the constant state of emergency, then it's not that easy, because you have to be busy with something else, with like being able that there is some ground when you can put actually your feet on and make this next step. So I guess maybe it's also about the conditions you are in for a particular moment.
I also don't know if it really feels like time to worry about getting out of a bubble in a time of crisis. But I do think that I'm questioning the use of bubble, because if you look at a bubble, it's really one of the most harmless things in the world. You know, like it's just air and like a small amount of soap floating. It leaves no trace. So I think maybe I relate more to this idea of the doors or the walls. And those, for me, you know, start like on the inside, ways I just can't seem to think. Like, I don't know if I agree with Rivka that we all, or maybe I agree that we do come in just trying to fulfill the assumptions and like agendas that we enter with, but to whatever extent that's true, that's the extent I want to be working to get out of, like that being the only option I have with people.
I also find myself wondering, adding to Marta what you're saying, whether we actually do make significant shifts when comfortable, or whether it actually does require the state of emergency that has now led to what we see are quite significant shifts, or at least, and questions to shift in the world. So the prod actually does seem to invite a move.
I would add there that I think this prod is useful as a catalyst, but I wonder about the need for comfort in order to make lasting shift.
Pleasure.
Urgent can also be burn hot and fast. And what can we learn from a hot and fast moment and plant it as a more not lasting stream of it, but we need comfort in our lives as well to be able to make change from a centered place, is my thought.
So it's like this sort of combination of balance and imbalance.
Yeah, and
harmony and discord.
Thinking a lot about this dichotomy that Joanna said at the start around action and patience. And I was looking through my journals for a quote from, I think, Twyla Tharp that I remember loving a long time ago, thinking about how choreography is something that both happens all at once and takes forever to happen, where you must act and you must show up to the studio, you must show up to your time for creation for it to happen, but you can't expect that you will create a finished piece in your 2-hour rehearsal, that you must wait for whatever, for things to percolate, and you must also act. And those two things, returning to the habit of practice and action and also having patience, are not mutually exclusive. They can exist in harmony together. And I think the tension between action and patience comes when you have a deep expectation that every action you take will immediately create the result that you wish to see. And you have to allow that to not happen, but continue to act.
when you talk about this, it brought me the idea of like ground fluid, which is something like you're inside, but then you have the membrane of the cell, which is permanent, permeable, which is possible. It's like the place of being in attention, for, but also in this moment of being ready to decide to go inside, to the ground fluid, or go into cellular, which is like fascia, whatever, like, so go into the ocean of outside. So I found for myself working with ground fluid good for transition, for this being present in the moment with senses and attention, but also when it's necessary, be safe inside. And then when senses say that it's a reason to go or need to go, because you are in this transitional fluid, then it's easy to react, and then easy also to go back. So this was just my experience.
Mm.
I like that visual, the different fluids.
I'll also add, just as a way of moderation, that we're going to end in about 5 minutes, or come to an end in about 5 minutes. So if you have questions or things to add, you have 5 minutes.
Mariana?
Yeah, I've been pondering on this idea of, what you said, Joanna, about bursting the bubble or breaking the bubble. Why if no one breaks the bubble and recognize the bubble? And I also felt during this last year, almost year now, that it's very hard to be present in the state of perception. So one can easily get with all this virtual and technological thing, all the senses get numb. Or for me, has been very frequent that I have to push myself in order to be in contact with the senses again. And I think this is crucial, actually, because we are not activating the senses of taste or smell or whatever, not just movement. And maybe the bubble has its purpose to reconnect with this. Maybe there's a possibility there, or even to amplify other things that we kind of have the intuition that become a sense between brackets, or not, or I mean, I understand the sense that as Hannah was saying, things are burning and we have the urge to run to save something that sometimes we need to hold on, not to just run. And I like this idea of holding on, not just run or try to save anything, but just be. Yeah.
Hi. I just would like to add something, because when we talk about the bubble or things that they revolve into ourselves and our own experiences in the world as an individual, but we always forget that the individual is never alone or is never individual, because we coexist with an environment, that we are this environment, the atmosphere. So like Einstein has a type of form that he describes as a finite form with no borders. That would be the shape of Earth, for example. There is not a border, but there is a transition from Earth to the space. So there is a permeability in that space. This is also just to remember that the nervous system itself is not something just inside of us, but it expands outside. We are in constant cooperation, wanting or not, with the environment we are in. So sometimes when I reflect about a bubble, like, okay, I live inside of a certain environment, most of the times I will not be aware in the totality of this environment. So I can actually get more deep into the bubble sometimes. And this can have expressions about our locality. Like a few years ago, because I had more time, 2 years ago, because I had more time being in one place. So not touring, not traveling, not on creation, dealing with people on the street or whatever, just walking. I understood better my neighborhood, for example. And I discovered that just around the corner, there was like so many unbelievable people to talk and to interact with. And it was just really like by the corner. Like there was a neighbor making like salons to discuss different things about activism, whatever. He would invite from houseless people to professors to coexist in the same space for an evening. And this was really like 2 blocks away from where I lived, and I'd never heard about that in the 2 years I lived there. So sometimes it's our ability of thinking that we are singular that don't allow us to observe that we are actually not, and that we are in cooperation with this environment that we are co-creating.
I think also that that it's not about resigning the bubble to be more open or connected with different social groups or whatever, and that the bubble is important place of being comfortable and of building something that you can then carry outside or share outside. And then it's more about being attentive and present in a dwelling, in the exact place where you are, as you said. And but I think the conditions of living are making it harder, at least from my experience, because I'm moving a lot from place to place, and it's really hard to feel somewhere at home or feel somewhere in a familiar neighborhood or the place that you can engage in, and that's why we are kind of distancing ourselves from this variety of environments that we are living in. We don't live in only one environment, but across different strata. Yeah.
What I would like to ask to the word bubble, different types of kinship and friendship, because it's the second time I'm entering your very cozy bubble. And actually I did it because Kasia Swoboda sent me an invitation, a reminder yesterday. And I was just talking with Ula, who is here also, and we just stopped talking on phone because she said, but Grand Union is starting, so we will see each other on Zoom. So I think also there are different bubbles, and I perceive them as different networks when, as just Dorota said, we can feel at home or we can feel at ease to speak. I got invited to speak because I know Dorota and her voice, and now I feel I felt invited to speak now. So I think that maybe there is something positive in this very uncomfortable word bubble that we might take advantage of.
And I do like still to bring back the notion that I learned very much with Maria Scaroni, moving as bubbles that become foam. And I do like this idea that many bubbles become something else.
I do just want to say thank you to everyone so much for participating. The images have been amazing. It's been nice to glimpse into your lives and your inner worlds and your plants. We can keep talking, but we are going to have to transition in about 10 minutes. I just really want to welcome anybody to put comments in the chat, say something aloud, but we have a hard stop in 10.